Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're sinking our teeth into something that could totally change what's on our dinner plates, cultured food. We're going to break down how it's made, how it's regulated, and what it all really means.
I mean, it sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie, doesn't it? But here's the thing. This isn't some story about the distant future. It's a new reality in food that's happening right now. This one question really gets to the heart of it all. Instead of raising a whole animal for meat, what if we could just grow the meat itself?
Okay, so let's get the official lingo down because it matters. Regulators, like Food Standards Australia, New Zealand, we'll call them FONS, have a specific name for it: cell-cultured food. It's food grown directly from real animal cells. And this is a really, really important distinction. It is not the same as precision fermentation. That's where you use something like yeast to produce an ingredient. Here, the cell is the food.
So you're probably wondering, how on earth do you go from a single cell to, well, to dinner? Let's pull back the curtain on how this new kind of meat is actually made. It's a pretty fascinating journey.
It all kind of breaks down into four main stages. First up, you get the cells. This is done with a harmless, small sample. In the case of the very first product looked at in Australia, it came from a Japanese quail. Then the best of those cells are picked out and stored in what's called a master cell bank. Think of it like a perfect starter culture you can use over and over. After that, the cells go into a bioreactor, a big, sterile, stainless steel tank where they're fed a nutrient-rich liquid that helps them multiply like crazy. And finally, you harvest all those new cells, give them a good wash, and shape them into the final food product.
And this quote from one of the pioneers of the space, UPS Foods, just hits the nail on the head. The key word there is recapitulates. They're not inventing some new weird biology. They're just recreating the totally natural process of cell growth, the same thing that happens inside an animal every single day, but doing it in a new, super-controlled environment.
And that environment is everything. So when you hear about this stuff, try to get that image of a mad scientist's lab out of your head. That's not what we're talking about. The reality is much closer to a modern brewery or a facility that makes yogurt. It's all about a clean, closed, food-grade system that's built for safety and consistency.
All right, now for the big one. You can't just take something from a bioreactor and slap a food label on it. It has to go through the ultimate safety check. Let's dig into how this new food has to run what's basically a regulatory gauntlet to prove it's safe enough to eat.
This is it. The number one question on pretty much everyone's mind. So let's just ask it plainly. Is this stuff actually safe? We're going to look at what the regulators found when they examined all the evidence.
The way regulators tackle this is super systematic. They basically map out every single potential hazard you could think of, and then they match it with a specific way to manage it. For example, the cells have to come from a healthy animal and are tested to make sure they're stable. The nutrients they're fed are all food grade, and everything gets washed off at the end. Because it's a closed system, there's no microbial contamination. And just like conventional meat, the final product is tested for things like salmonella and comes with instructions on how to cook it safely. It's a step-by-step safety plan.
Now, what about any tiny little traces of stuff left over from that nutrient media? Regulators have a specific tool for this. It's called the margin of exposure, or MOE. For anything that's left, they need to see a margin of exposure greater than 100. You can think of it like a massive safety buffer. It's a scientific standard that tells them there's a low concern for our health. And let me be clear, this isn't just a suggestion, it's a hard and fast rule.
So, what's the nutritional scorecard look like? Well, when they compared Val's cultured quail to conventional chicken, they saw some differences. The cultured quail was higher in things like iron and sodium, and yes, it also had more trans fat. But here's the crucial part from the official risk assessment. The regulators concluded that even if you ate a lot of this stuff, these amounts are not considered a risk to your health.
And really, this is the bottom line, straight from the experts at FSANZ. After going through all the data with a fine-tooth comb, they came to this conclusion. They found no safety concerns that couldn't be properly managed. That's the key takeaway. From a regulatory view, the process has the right checks and balances to keep it safe.
So, we know it can be made safely. But how does that become official? Approving a brand new category of food isn't just about okaying one product. It's about writing a whole new rule book for everyone to follow, one that guarantees safety and transparency.
And this isn't some secret process happening behind closed doors. It's actually really public.
If we look at the real-world application for cultured quail, you can see it's a step-by-step journey. There are rounds for the public and industry to give feedback, the regulators publish all their scientific findings, and it all leads to a final decision by government food ministers. The whole thing is designed to be transparent.
So what's actually in this new rulebook? Well, it's pretty comprehensive. First, you can't just start selling this stuff. Any cultured product has to be explicitly approved and listed in the Food Standards Code under a brand new standard. Second, safety is non-negotiable. Producers have to follow strict food safety plans with set limits for microbes like Salmonella. And third, you, the consumer, have to know what you're buying. Labeling has to be clear, and there can be conditions, like with the quail, which can only be sold as an ingredient in other foods, not on its own in a supermarket.
Okay, so the science checks out, the regulators have a plan, but none of that matters if people are weirded out by it, right? And that brings us to a huge piece of the puzzle. What in the world do we call it?
You know, words have power, and the research on this is pretty fascinating. It shows that names like clean meat or animal-free meat tend to make people feel a lot more positive about the whole idea. But on the flip side, a term like lab-grown meat, well, that tends to make people a bit more hesitant.
But, and this is a big but, when it comes to the regulators, their *1 job isn't marketing. It's making sure you are not misled. They want you to know exactly what you're buying, and that's why they've landed on official terms like cell-cultured or cell-cultivated. The goal is total clarity, so you can make an informed choice.
Wow, we have covered a ton of ground here, from the science in the bioreactor to the ink on the rulebook. So as we start to wrap this up, let's just boil it all down to the key things you really need to remember from this explainer.
Okay, so here are the big 4 takeaways. 1. This is real meat, made from animal cells, just grown in a super clean and controlled way. 2. It has to pass a whole series of tough safety tests before it can ever be sold. 3. When you see it, the label will be crystal clear. It'll say cell-cultured or cell-cultivated. And 4. This is happening now. Cultured quail is the very first food to go through this whole new regulatory system in Australia and New Zealand.
And that really leaves us with one final question, and this one's for you. This technology isn't just a theory anymore. It's becoming a regulated, real-world food. So after all of this, now that you know how it's made and how it's regulated, would you give it a try? Definitely some food for thought. Thanks for joining us on The Explainer.